Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. I'd like to talk to you for a minute about morality. Pat Condell has a video up titled Where Do You Get Your Morality From, or something like that. And you know, the accusation from religious people is that if you're an atheist, there's no morality. There's no basis for morality at all. And it's really baffled people for centuries, for millennia. Aristotle was baffled by it. Aristotle said, you know what's good by looking at what good men do. And then comes the question of why do we call them good men? How do we know? And then, you know, it's just every culture has their own view of what's good and bad. You know, there's no way to tie it down. Everyone thinks for centuries that's been the issue. However, I think that there is a way to tie it down. There's one question that you have to ask, and it gets you on the road to ethics. But we can't connect them at first because everyone they don't see the connection at first. We connect them later, and then you can take the connection for granted after you know it. First you have to know, however, that we start with the question: what is the single fundamental alternative in human life? Because ethics is what? What should we do? Ethics is how should we act? How should we act for our neighbor? How should we act, you know, in the future, to our children, to society, to Uncle Sam? How should we act? What should we do? So the question, what's the fundamental on-off, yes-no binary question? What's the fundamental issue in human life? Is to live or die. And all of ethics has to address that. All of ethics has to be that the first decision in any ethical process, in any process where you decide what to do, and you're ethical and right in your decision, the whole decision can be traced back to the idea that you choose life over death. Now, people, if you have a degree or work in a university, certainly you're going to scoff at this because that's simplifying everything far too much. You can't bring questions down. All of ethics is now reduced to the question of being for or against your own life in your actions. That's going to blow some people's mind, but that has to be the first question. And any decision you make in your life has to be on the premise of living or on the premise of dying. So, very simply, all you have to do with any given situation, any given person's actions, any given system of beliefs, any given faith, you just have to ask, is it for or against life? So now let's take the second step, and what is required to support man's life? And we would find that what is required to support man's life is reason, rationality. You couldn't say long-term planning is what supports man's life. You know, like the guy has to plant his crops every spring, he has to stay here in this valley, or he has to know where the herds are this fall. And we can evaluate in these ancient tribal terms because, after all, humans evolved in that span of time, crossing hundreds of thousands of years. So we can't just analyze things in the last 100 years of society walking about in phones and concrete and stuff. So ethically the question is, how does a person choose to live? And if he plans his crops and so forth irrationally, let's say he plants at the wrong time of year. Now, barring new discoveries, he's schizophrenic and he discovers winter planting, you know, but if that's the case, then the next year he commits suicide anyway. It doesn't matter. So you can't be irrational even in planting crops. Now, project that into an industrial society and say you're going to be irrational in your day-to-day life. I mean, you can do it. The thing is, we've got so much wealth in modern society, you can fumble-bumble along and get enough to eat. That's all it is enough calories into your body. But are you happy? That's the question. are you happy? Can you be happy? And the answer is no. There is not a way to be happy if your actions are not virtuous. And there's not a way to be virtuous if you're not acting on the life premise. And there's no way to protect yourself. There's no way to achieve life by being rational. Now, that means that rationality is the key virtue. So you can see that anything that's in favor of your life, anything that you can do for your life, has to be, first of all, rational. Has to follow from rational. And then it has to be, productive or virtuous or, pride or independence or any of the virtues you can name. So to answer Pat Condell's question in a quick sentence here, where do I get my morality from? Reality and the nature of humans.